Dark Crypt is a turn-based puzzler with a horror theme. Sneak through an old crypt where an ancient evil slumbers. Its shadow is corrupting the tomb, and the once buried bodies now haunt the halls. This evil must be sealed at all costs. Welcome to episode 10 of the 5 T's of Stealth, where we will be discussing Dark Crypt. Once again, the 5 T's include tasks, terrain, tools, threats, and tension. These are what I consider to be the fundamentals of stealth gaming. None of your brothers from the monastery believe what they have heard. They dismiss it as heresy. You alone must carry the weight of the world on your shoulders. Do you have what it takes to descend into the darkness and through this crypt to seal an ancient evil? The words written at the very beginning of the game make things clear. Let me read them for you. Day 1. An ancient evil slumbers at the bottom of this crypt. The prophecy speaks of its inevitable awakening. I must descend to the deepest level. There I shall seal the evil before it casts its shadow over our world. I cannot fail in my task. As you progress throughout the game, more journal entries will be written at different intervals. They all speak of a devotion to God. Well, at first. As you descend into the darkness, you also descend to madness. Journal entries become more deranged, and as you run out of ink, you are forced to use your blood. This pattern continues until you reach the bottom and confront the ancient evil. But once you arrive, you cannot help but commit yourself to your new master. Your objective in each level is rather simple. Reach the exit. This will become more and more complicated. Sometimes you'll have to pull a lever or collect keys to open a door, all while avoiding the gaze of the undead. Throughout Dark Crypt, there are 6 floors for a total of 60 rooms to clear. Each floor has a unique aesthetic, but it's typically just a simple visual change. Luckily, Dark Crypt doesn't need to do anything too crazy here with level design, because each level is a different puzzle to solve, and that protects it from any shortcomings. The levels can't get repetitive when they all require a unique solution, even if they all just look like floating 2D tiles surrounded by darkness. Aesthetically, I think the game perfectly captures the crypt/dungeon-esque vibe, and that is all it needs to do. Dark Crypt is a turn-based game, and because of that, we need to discuss something as trivial as walking, because every step you take influences the world around you. Enemies only move after you move. Each step counts as a move, and there will be a total move counter for each level, as well as a par for solving each level. The most impactful tool at your disposal is the ability to teleport. This can only be done once per level. While moving around the map, you can mark a location, and when you so choose, you can teleport back to said location. Teleporting counts as a move, but marking the location does not. Some levels will require you to pull a lever to open up certain areas, and activating said lever will count as a move. Other areas are blocked by a locked door. You must retrieve a key to unlock them. Picking up the key does not count as a move, but opening up the door does. Here's a buff for your teleportation ability. Rotten Flesh. Every rotten flesh you consume will add a teleport charge, allowing multiple teleports per level. Another environmental tool is a vase. Some levels will have vases that you can move in order to block the sight of any undead in the crypt. But be careful, it can be destroyed by a few things. Vampires, spike traps, and if you teleport directly into it. The last gadget at your disposal is an invisibility potion. These are scattered around the map and consumed when you step onto them. Once consumed, you will have 6 turns of invisibility. You cannot be seen, but you can still be killed if you walk into an enemy. One last thing that is important to note, you can choose to restart a level at any time or undo your last move. You can actually undo as many moves as you want, so keep that in mind. The addition of an undo button may sound a bit weird, and may sound like it ruins the consequences of a stealth game, but I would actually argue it's essential. An undo button is a damn necessity for this title. Some of these levels take over 100 moves to complete, and believe me, having to redo all that becomes a nightmare in a hurry. In terms of a loss of consequence, that's partially true, for sure. Some stealth games make you restart every time no matter what, and in some games that's perfect. Deadbolt and Ascent Spy. But here, I genuinely believe it would have made me hate the game. The enemies will catch you a lot. They will catch you constantly. The important thing to note is that the enemies do not have any limits to their line of sight. And when they look in a direction, that whole lane is covered, meaning every single step you take has to be calculated. And the undo button encourages you to experiment and take a chance. As you descend the floors of the crypt, you will come across many different undead. Each one will have different patterns for their line of sight. If they detect you, no matter the distance, you are dead. First up, skeletons. Skeletons can only look in two directions, either left and right or up and down. Armored skeletons look in all four directions in a clockwise rotation. Vampires will move around the map in a set pattern, so make sure you watch to learn what steps they are taking. Lost souls only stare in one direction with no movement, and completely lock down that lane. In some missions, there will be gems that you can destroy to eliminate these lost souls. Skeleton mages only look in two diagonal directions, while skeleton archmages will look diagonally in all directions in a clockwise rotation. Aside from the actual enemies, there are also spike traps that extend and retract as you move. I believe it only occurred in one mission, but your reflection will spawn, and you cannot come into contact with it. Another threat I only recall in a level towards the end was lights turning on and off for each move you made, forcing you to remember the layout and plan ahead. Now, of course, as this is a stealth puzzle game, the biggest threat is solving each puzzle. How do you avoid each enemy and collect each item in order to exit each room? I wouldn't describe Dark Crypt as a very tense experience. However, I did find some of the levels to be exceedingly difficult, but the experience never had me on the edge of my seat. Since nothing happens unless you move, you basically have full control, and you are able to gain a pretty complete understanding of each level, so there aren't really any surprises. Again, I found this game to be very difficult. There were some levels I really didn't think I'd get through, but I had to just keep trying and stare at them until something worked. Honestly, I tried to look up the solutions to a couple levels, but it seems this game didn't have any playthroughs uploaded. I guess it really truly is a hidden gem. If you do get stuck, however, you are able to skip levels. I didn't want to do this though, and it seems there was even an achievement for completing the game without skipping levels, which is kind of nice to have. The first thing that came to mind once I understood the flow of Dark Crypt was Super Hot. I played Super Hot probably at least 7 years ago, I would guess, on my PlayStation VR. In Super Hot, everything stopped when you did, whether that was enemies moving around or bullets flying towards you. The speed of the world was directly proportional to your movement speed. Move slowly, and everything else was in slow motion. Now, Super Hot was a first-person shooter, so clearly that's where the similarities start and end, but it was the first comparison I made. There's not really a point to this information, more so just a side note I wanted to mention. Getting back on track, Dark Crypt feels like a heavy dose of puzzler with the high-stakes consequences of a stealth game. And honestly, it's a pretty damn good blend. I love both puzzle games and stealth games, so it's hard for me to complain about such a combination. However, I know not everyone is like me. This is a very untraditional type of stealth, and I can definitely tell and understand that it's not for everyone, and that's okay. If the idea of a stealth puzzler where enemies only move when you do sounds like a bad time, then honestly it probably will be. It can get very frustrating when you get stuck on a level. Something common in all puzzle games. On the other hand, if you have even the slightest interest in this game, then you certainly need to give it a go. Personally, this game is a great blend of two of my most beloved genres, and if you're like me, then I absolutely recommend Dark Crypt to you.